This is 911. Do you have an emergency?
Today on Rescue 911. Who can you trust when domestic violence escalates?
The windshield in the van was completely shattered. She seemed extremely frightened.
Victim Services helps the family through their emotional trauma.
Unless someone will press charges, there's nothing we can do.
Plus,
he loves to brush his teeth.
A little boy's toothbrush is wedged dangerously deep in his throat.
What happened?
It's a protocol that you never remove anything that's impaled.
On Rescue 911.
The police department in Austin, Texas, has created a unique counseling program that provides immediate on-scene care whenever an incident of domestic violence is reported. This story is not a recreation. It's a look at a family violence team as they provide crisis intervention on a weekend in late May of 1994.
Police department, open the door, please.
Hello.
Evening. Is your boyfriend here? Who's been beating you up? What's his name?
Still a long ways off. Say something.
And there's no reason in the world you should have to put up with this sort of abuse.
Victims are very much in denial of what's going on in the situation, and they don't want to look at what's really happening.
Somebody called in and said that he was beating you up. We get here and it's pretty obvious that somebody has beat you up. If he's been beating on you, the law says we're going to take him to jail. This has happened before. She's got the phone number to where stuff. She's had problems before.
We know that you're scared, and we know that people are afraid to file charges, so we do that for them, so it's not your fault, okay? So what's his name? Spell that last name.
Many times they're saying, I don't want them arrested, I just want them to stop. And that's very simplistic thinking because it's not going to happen.
If they continue in this pattern, if they don't get some help, they could end up dead.
Melinda went back to her apartment the next day and refused any further help. When we continue.
The windshield in the van was completely shattered. She seemed to be extremely frightened that something was going to happen to them back at the house.
May 31st, 10:58 p.m. Another call for help comes into the Austin police.
Got very angry and threw something at my car and it broke the windshield.
Do you live there too?
Yes, I do. 3616 from a family disturbance that just occurred. To pilot waiting at the 7-Eleven.
41-year-old Jan Barstow had driven to a nearby convenience store and called for help. Officer David Espinoza responds.
The windshield in the van was completely shattered. She seemed to be extremely frightened that something was going to happen to them back at the house. We went with her straight over to their home.
Yes.
The man Jan shares a house with had broken her windshield during an argument.
We've been out to this address a number of times, and each time there's been some sign that there's been violence, but unless someone will press charges, or unless we can determine that, what's happened, that someone has assaulted someone else, there's nothing we can do. Well, finally, she produced a photograph of what has been going on, and I mean, it's not pretty at all.
Victim Services counselors Patty McDavid and Ray Ramirez arrived to talk to the family.
Go ahead. Well, our window of opportunity is at the time that they are totally emotionally engrossed in the incident that's occurred.
I don't know exactly how to explain what happens. He goes into rages, or he just gets angry and wants to force everything to be his way.
Sterling was in the bedroom crying.
And Sterling is who?
My baby brother.
That's usually when he gets angry, is when Sterling cries.
And after about an hour of crying, of hearing the child cry, I came downstairs to find out what was going on. And she says, well, nobody wants to watch the child, and she was working on the computer.
Leah started yelling at Mom, and then he told her to get out, and they stormed downstairs, and he slammed this door.
She did what she normally does, and that's she gets in the car and she drives off and leaves everybody here.
And she started to back out, and Leah went out there with Sterling, and he got a rock, and he told her to open the door or he was gonna break a window.
I had a rock in my hand, and I threw it.
The kids were crying. They were trying to stop him.
I'm not a violent person. I have a very, reputable position at work and everything.
It happens a lot, but it never really gets this bad. They usually don't. Mom usually doesn't get hurt very often.
I thought it was getting better until tonight. And I don't know what set it off.
That's not an issue because the important thing is that you're taking the steps now to try to protect yourself.
Am I supposed to go pay rent someplace else while somebody's living in this house and I'm paying for half of it? That's not fair either. Of course this is wrong. Of course I shouldn't be throwing rocks. But I also shouldn't be sitting in this car.
You're afraid of what?
I'm afraid he'll come back and hurt one of us because he'll be mad.
What makes you think that?
Because he's left before.
Mm-hmm.
And he always comes back and then they fight some more.
When he comes back? Everybody was a victim in that household. And when I say that, I mean not just once, over and over and over and over.
We want to go ahead and talk a little bit about how you're feeling and what you would like to have happen. You know, what you would like to see your mom do at this point, as well as what she's prepared to do to help keep you guys safe.
I'm glad something finally did happen, because this has happened before. He gets very violent sometimes for the littlest things.
Throwing things, throwing me against the car, or throwing me on the ground, or grabbing me by the head, or choking.
One other time that he got all mad at my mom, and they went outside and he threw her on the ground and he started hitting her and beating her up.
I kept waiting for the black eyes and broken bones, but this is going to lead to something. This is going to lead to just straight death without that in between if it doesn't stop.
The next morning, Ray follows up with a phone call to Jan.
Just being able to get a hold of them is refreshing because a lot of times the next day you can't find them. Sometimes they're at the jail bailing the person out. I would like for you to come down here because Leo could be released within an hour.
Hi, how are you today?
Jan's father, Bob Barstow, accompanies her and her 13-year-old daughter, Jana.
Do you want to try to get into safe shelter? Do you want to go ahead and do the protective order?
I don't necessarily want to keep Leo away from his son or us. He's fine with us most of the time.
She was bailing out already.
He doesn't know why he does these things.
It's kind of like holding somebody over a cliff and feel your grip losing, thinking this person could die.
I think it's harmful for a child to have a parent that they see every day suddenly disappear from their lives.
But it's not nearly as harmful as seeing outbursts, violence, and assault. If this keeps going, those rages are going to be so terrifying to that child that he's not going to know whether he can trust him or not either. And he feels that.
These fights scare Sterling so much.
And the other kids as well. So what I would suggest is that you try to get out of there.
I've lived out of boxes before after the first time. It's hard on us.
I know.
And the kids don't deserve that.
I could rent a house for you.
Oh, Dad, that drains y'all so much.
Well, baby, you're my daughter. Doesn't make any difference.
I told him last night that the reason I'm in situations like this is because of the kind of parenting that I got, and this is the man.
I taught her everything she knows.
Yeah.
It's very likely that Jan's pattern started at an early age when her mother and I were still living together, and we didn't know how to handle and communicate things between ourselves.
Dad's been through lots of counseling, and now he's being like the father that I wish I had when I was growing up. So I appreciate that, Dad. I don't know how to solve the problems because I never saw my parents solve them. They just argued and my dad left. And with Leo, he'll blow up or he'll argue, and I'm the one that runs to the car and leaves. My bedroom was next to y'all's, Dad, when we were kids. I heard Mom screaming out, "Bob, don't, you're killing me." And it scared the daylights out of me when I was a kid. I couldn't come over and do anything. And that's when I got a piece of paper and I wrote on it, "I hate you, I hate you, I hate you." And it was about you because I'd never felt it before. So now I'm giving it to the kids. But I can't let that happen because they'll find relationships to resolve this problem they're going through.
You see a generational domino effect that seems endless. Right at that moment was an opportunity to go ahead and interrupt that cycle of violence. He's going to be out of jail. He could be getting out of jail right now. So the best time to do it is right now.
I will not let this go on again the way that I have allowed it in the past. I will file every time there is something like this. I've seen the value in it now. And I need to do that for my own protection and for the children, so I'm clear about that.
Jan decides to file the police report needed to investigate a past incident.
Thank you. I want them to have a supportive family, one that nurtures, one that doesn't cause fear and fright. We don't have that right now. Lee wouldn't have been taken away if he hadn't have gotten out of control. The bear. The only part where I'm responsible is for not having them take him away the first time, because that showed him he could get away with it.
Leo was released from jail that afternoon. He pleaded guilty to an assault charge for throwing the rock. Jan and her kids went to live temporarily with Jan's father.
It feels good to stop it.
2, 3.
There's a place of love in my heart for Leo that's as deep as it ever was. I think it's the most loving thing I could do, by having him have to look at himself honestly instead of being part of his cover-up.
I hope Leo goes through counseling, and I hope my mom goes through counseling with him, and that maybe they won't live together, but they'll still be friends.
This matter of passing things down from one generation to another doesn't stop until someone takes the responsibility to learn a different pattern. And if Jan doesn't, she's going to fail her children.
2.5 months later, Jan and her children moved to a new house of their own. A restraining order prevents Leo from having any contact with them.
I had always thought that battering occurred among minorities and people with less money and less resources. Then when I went to the Battered Women's Center, there were these women. They were just like me.
A lot of times, affluent, educated individuals cover things up a lot more and tolerate it because they don't want the social stigma.
Hey, it has to be a solid one. Victim services, I'm so glad they're there. If I had known that they'd be as helpful as they are, I think I'd have stepped in earlier.
Helping people who are being abused is the kind of cause that everyone should take up. Because if we can ensure that everyone's safe, it makes it a much better world to live in, doesn't it?
Next.
I tried to see if I could move it, and it was definitely stuck in the back of his throat. And I could tell the toothbrush was definitely deep in because it wasn't sticking out as much as it should.
Each year in this country, nearly 8,000 children die from preventable injuries. As parents, we try to make our homes safe from anything that could pose a threat to our kids. But on January 12, 1993, while Kim Dittmeyer was at home in Germantown, Maryland, looking after her 2-year-old son, Kevin, she found out that in certain situations, almost any object can be dangerous.
Just sit down, Pooter. Okay? Gotta eat some lunch. I don't want you to fall out of the chair. Pooter usually is not a very good eater. Good boy. I can beg him to take one bite. He may take a bite. Can you take a bite of your sandwich for me? One more bite and I'll be happy. Can you take one more bite?
You don't want any more sandwich? Where you going, boy? Where are you going? Come here.
Finally got to the point where, okay, I'm done eating. I'm not sitting here any longer and begging you to come back to the table. And so I told Pooter, let's go and brush our teeth, which he's very excited about because he loves to brush his teeth.
Brush it on your teeth. Your teeth like it.
I think he likes the toothpaste more than anything because normally he'll suck the toothpaste off if I let him.
I'm just gonna rinse, and then we'll rinse your mouth, okay? Such a big boy brushing your own teeth. Pooter, are you okay?
It was a real typical cry like I'd heard him do when he's frustrated. But then I thought the toothbrush is in his mouth.
What happened? What happened. Oh my goodness, I gotta sit you up. Gotta sit you up. It's in the header, honey, I know.
I tried to see if I could move it, and it was definitely stuck in the back of his throat. I could tell the toothbrush was definitely deep in because it wasn't sticking out as much as it should.
God, it's gotta be in your throat. Oh my goodness. You gotta listen to me, honey, okay? Gotta listen really close. Gotta keep your arms out like this. Don't touch the toothbrush.
I knew if he flailed at it, he could rupture something.
And he fell on it. It stuck in the back of his throat. I need an ambulance.
It actually sounded good to hear him cry because I knew he was breathing.
Drive.
Emergency responders were immediately dispatched to the scene.
My mind went back to a Rescue 911 show that I saw.
If you don't cry, it won't hurt so bad.
Through the whole show, they kept impressing on how important it was that if we are ever stabbed, to leave the object in because it may be acting as a natural cork.
Don't touch the toothbrush. I'm coming right back. I'm coming right back. I'm right here. I'm right here. Oh my God, they're not here yet. Don't touch the toothbrush! Keep your arms out, okay? Oh God, please help us. Okay, there they are. Here we go.
Within 4 minutes, rescue workers, including paramedic Sherry Markwood, arrived to treat the little boy.
I looked into his mouth to make sure that his airway was not obstructed, and it wasn't. But I could not see the bristles of the toothbrush. It was buried that far. I was amazed. I had not seen anything impaled into a mouth like that before. But it's a protocol that you never remove anything that's impaled. You package it to where it's stabilized and it won't come out by itself. You let the doctors take it out.
2-year-old Kevin was briefly examined at a local hospital, then transferred to Children's Hospital in Washington, D.C., and put under the care of emergency physician Bob Belfer.
It was a perplexing problem. With penetrating injuries to the mouth, there's a death rate of up to 30%. I urgently wanted to obtain some consultation with doctors who may have been more familiar with this type problem.
I know it hurts real bad, honey.
Kevin's father followed the boy and his mother to the hospital.
It was a little frustrating just because he was there, he was in pain. The bleeding was picking up a little bit, but I could see they were doing everything that they could.
This looks to be only millimeters away. It's very close to the carotid artery. I don't think we can be sure that if we remove that, there wouldn't be significant bleeding.
Ear, nose, and throat specialist Dr. Sharon Tomaski was one of the experts called in.
It's always difficult to talk to the parents. We must tell them every potential complication that could happen. Right next to and touching the carotid artery. And we don't think we're going to have to pinch it off. But if we did have to pinch
None of the doctors had ever seen this before. They knew that they had to pull the toothbrush out, but the biggest problem was how do we get it out and hold the artery together.
And we'll do our very best. And we'll have...
It was pretty heart-wrenching to know that when he has the surgery that's supposed to help him, it may kill him.
Got his head real still so he doesn't shake. Good, everybody
Good
ready?
to go?
That's a boy. Yes, okay, on the count of 3, he's all yours. As close to the teeth.
Dr. Kenneth Grunfast headed up the surgical team that performed the delicate operation.
Perfect.
The critical decision was that the safest thing to do would be putting a loop around each of the 3 main blood vessels and then going into the mouth and removing the toothbrush so that in the event there was major bleeding, we would be all ready to just tie off the blood vessels and he wouldn't lose that much blood.
Here's the blue loop around the common carotid artery, and this loop is around the external carotid.
More than 2 hours passed with no word.
Poor old guy, he was so scared.
Okay.
Is it coming out easily?
Looks okay.
See any bleeding?
Not yet. Okay, we got it.
Great. Mr. and Mrs. Dittmeyer?
I think the hospital did a great job. All the staff kept us real calm, kept us very informed, and they were just the best at what they do. Pooter came out just fine without any injury at all, without any side effects at all. Everybody kept saying, "You are so lucky. You are so incredibly lucky to have this kid alive." And they've asked me several times, "How did you know to leave that toothbrush alone?" And I always told them it was something I saw on Rescue 911. And it was very important that I did, because Pooter would not be here today had I not seen that show.
Kevin's mom did exactly the right thing. If she had struggled to get the toothbrush out, he could have bled to death right in front of her eyes.
Whoa, that was a very good eye, though. You watched.
It would have been a horrible thing to have lost him. And just realize that you appreciate him and love him more than you ever thought you did.
Okay, you ready? Are you ready?
Ready? Here we go.
Don't ever let children run around with things in their mouths.
Very good. What a hit, Pooter.
When I look at my little boy, I see a little kid who came this close to being dead. And he just continues to amaze me every day. I think he's the smartest, cutest little guy in the world.
Good.
And I'm so glad that he's here.
Step out of the car, please.